So you've been thinking about trading options. You've heard people talking about them, puts and calls. Maybe you've watched a few YouTubes on the basics, and you're just about ready to give it a try. But you're not sure if you should buy or sell them, and should you start off with puts or calls? Well, this video is for you. I'll walk you through your first option trade. So how should you start trading options? What's a good, safe first option transaction? My recommendation is sell a covered call on some stock you own. You'll need to own 100 shares of something, preferably a big S&P 500 stock, something liquid that has good volume every day. We'll go into all the details of you selling, also called writing, a covered call in a minute. But first, I want to give you some context. Here's a very simplified universe of options behind me. I'm actually showing a galaxy, not the universe. Covered calls are just a little corner of this galaxy. I've only marked a few option terms here, but there are many other concepts like Greeks, margin, iron condors, leaps, etc. You don't need to know all these things before making your first option trade. We'll keep it simple and just hit the most important things to know when selling or writing your first covered call. With options, you have puts and calls, the top row, and you can buy or sell them. We're going to be selling a call, a covered call. A call contract gives the option buyer the right to call away 100 shares from the option seller, you, at the strike price between now and the option's expiration date. As the seller, you get to pick the strike and expiration you want to sell. We're creating a new call option contract, also known as writing it. The buyer of this newly created call option contract will have to pay you a premium, and the seller, you, get to collect that premium. However, you're now under the obligation to sell your shares to the buyer at the strike price anytime between now and the expiration date. The buyer can choose to execute that option at any time. This is known as getting assigned, but the market will drive the choice of whether the buyer of this option chooses to execute it. The option seller, you, can sell naked or covered calls. For call options, naked means the seller does not already own the shares. This is dangerous because if the seller writes a naked call option and the stock shoots to the moon before the expiration date, the seller will have to go buy 100 shares at the current market price and sell them to the buyer at the much lower strike price. Or you'll have to close out your call option for much more than the premium you collected. However, if you already own the shares, then you're covered. You won't have to buy any shares at super high prices. You'll just have to let the option buyer call away your shares at the strike price instead of the much higher market price. It's not fun to miss out on all that price appreciation, but at least you won't get killed by needing to buy shares at super high prices. And you'll still have that premium you collected to ease the pain a little. Now let's get into the nuts and bolts of actually writing a covered call. But first, if you're enjoying this content and want to learn more about options for long-term investors, please like and subscribe. Okay, let me show you how to write a covered call. I'm going to use Schwab, a popular online brokerage. These steps will be similar at any online brokerage. We're going to look at the options chain for Google, the GOOGL shares. So let's type that into the search bar. Here it is. We'll click on the link to Google's page. If you click on the options button here, it'll take you to Google's options chain. You may first need to get approved for options trading at your brokerage. When you're selling a new covered call, you need to make a few choices and decisions. You need to choose your strike price, this column, and your expiration date. So these are the ones expiring June 16th, June 23rd, June 30th. So we're going to sell one in July, the July monthly. Because options, the monthly expirations are typically a little more liquid and they happen on the third Friday of each month. So this one's 38 days out. I like to initially sell my covered calls between 1 and 2 months, but that's totally up to you, whatever you prefer. So the strike and the expiration will affect how much premium you collect and the chances of your shares getting called away at the strike price. The chances of your shares getting called away is represented by delta, one of the option Greeks. So you can see delta by changing this to Greeks. And then if you go down to the July expiration, the 110 strike has a 94% chance of being assigned. So the delta that I usually look for is right around 15%. So the one I would probably sell here in July is the 135 strike. Right now Google's trading at 124 almost. So that would let you gain 11 points of price appreciation from 124 to 135, as well as collecting this premium, which is going to be somewhere between 74 and 79 cents. So let's say we get 75 cents. Now each contract is worth 100 shares, so you take this amount times 100. So we get about $75 for creating this call contract and selling it to someone. So let's do that. There's many ways you can enter your covered call order. The way I like to do it is I click on the bid. This fills in a lot of stuff for me. So strategies call, I'm going to sell to open 1 share, July 21st expiration, 135 strike. I'm going to make a limit order, but I'm going to try to get an extra penny. Get 75 for it instead of 74 cents. So the estimated amount of premium will get 75. Everything looks right. You can press the review button. And this is telling me I've already got 100 shares. I'm going to sell 1 option, call. You need to be careful here. Make sure you review this information because it's easy to screw up if you're not careful. July 21st expiration, the 135 strike. Schwab is going to charge a 65-cent commission, so we'll actually only get $74.34. Now once I press this place order button, we have just written our first covered call. And there you go. So the order has been received, but this is actually after hours, so this isn't going to get filled. You can go to trade and order status, and you'll see this sell to open, 1 covered call is still open, and this will stay in the open status until it gets filled. Now if you'd made that a market order, it would get filled right away during market hours. And doing a market order with a big liquid stock like Google is probably fine. I've had good luck with Schwab. They usually fill at a pretty good price, but never ever do a market order if you're selling an option on an illiquid small cap stock, because your brokerage will not fill you at a good price. Always do limit orders in that case. Now I'm going to go ahead and cancel this guy because I don't actually want to do it. So there'll be an action here for cancel if you don't want your order after you've placed it. We're going to cancel it. Yes. And there you go. It's been canceled. So again, before you try to sell a covered call, make sure you have 100 shares of the underlying stock and pay attention to the difference between the ask and the bid. The smaller the spread, the better. For instance, the 120 strike here has a much smaller spread than the 105 strike. It's $1.60, whereas this is only 15 cents. This one's only 10 cents, 355 to 365. This one's only 5 cents. That's because they have more volume, they're more liquid. Look at this, the 150, wow. 140 has 52,000 volume and the spread is only 2 cents. The OI stands for open interest, which is the people that have already placed orders and they're just waiting to get executed. After you write your covered call and it gets filled, look at your positions page, which is right there. I'm not going to show you my positions because I don't care to share my portfolio with the world just yet. But for that covered call you just sold, you'll see a negative market value. In the beginning, the negative value will be very close to the amount of premium you just collected. Over time, this negative balance will change. It could go up or down depending on the underlying stock. If the stock stays below your strike price, it will slowly decay down to zero, and you'll just keep all the premium as the option expires. If the stock goes up above your strike price, then the negative value will remain and could increase, depending on how quickly it goes up and the remaining time until expiration. If it stays above your strike price at expiration, then your shares will get called away for the strike price, not the market price. So that's it for a brief introduction to options, covered calls, and selling your first contract. Please consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed this content. Let me know if this was helpful in the comments and if there is any topic on options for long-term investors that you'd like to see.